Joy J97 said, so when are you going to have the opposition leader on the program? We would love to hear her being interviewed live.
We have made several overtures. We have made several overtures without success.
Right. We've seen Minister Dayal Singh now.
Good morning, Minister Dayal Singh.
Good morning, Pablo Paul Richards, PhD, doctor.
All of that.
Well, he sent me a WhatsApp yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And on his profile is Pablo Paul Richards, PhD.
All of that?
All of that?
All that, Paul?
There's a little bit of narcissism there.
Morning, gentlemen. Morning.
I work for that channel. Nobody can give me that channel.
I agree. I agree.
All right. Nobody can hand me that channel.
Morning, Minister. Thanks for joining us.
Unlike Wade Mark.
Rewind. Rewind. I don't know that is an accurate statement. Please rewind. Member, please withdraw. Member, please withdraw. Member, please withdraw that statement.
Withdrawn speaker.
Thank you. Wow.
Minister, thanks for coming in. We are so we want to apologize.
I was expecting to meet you all in person. I brought many.
Yeah, no, we bought breakfasts.
But you all are not here, so Steve will have
I will eat all.
Anyway, thanks for joining us.
For me.
You're welcome.
All right,
thanks for joining us this morning. First of all, I know you've been working with candidates, your PNM's local government candidates, in the St. Joseph MP. How many districts or divisions are there, local government, in terms of local government, in the St. Joseph constituency?
Yeah, so the St. Joseph constituency has about 6 areas, 5 under Sanwa Laventil and 1 under Tunapuna Piarco. So the Tunapuna Piarco is the Valsain St. Joseph seat, which is to the eastern extremity of the constituency. And then everything else west of St. Joseph Orangwes, St. Joseph Valsain, falls under Sanwa Laventil. So the vast majority of the area falls under Sanwa Laventil.
Oh, who is the councillor then for the district in St. Joseph, the Valsain area?
Seema Augustine, UNC.
UNC councillor. Okay. All right. Well,
right. So how? Go ahead, Brandon.
No. I think we were going to ask the same question. So how has it been going? The campaign going in terms of the people under your watch, the councillors under your watch, candidates.
Okay, so we are confident of doing very well in the Valsain St. Joseph seat. The 2 incumbents that we have in Sanwa Laventil, which will be the Sanwa East, Councillor Raphael John, we are confident of retaining that. We have gone in with a new, younger candidate in the Mount Dor and part of the Mount Lambert area, Kadeem Graham. He's very young, he's very keen, and we are confident again of retaining that seat. What we are trying to do with the 2 incumbents that we have under Sanwa Laventil is not only retain, but retain by wider margins. And that's what we are trying to do. The others under Sanwa Laventil, we are working very hard to do well. I was with one of them up to yesterday. And we are confident of retaining what we have and hopefully springing 1 or 2 little surprises along the way.
But I'm glad to hear that, because quite frankly, I've been very disappointed in the candidate from Mount Lambert who was here before. I'll say it publicly. Very disappointed.
Yeah. And that's why we had to go with someone new.
Well, I've seen Kadeem Graham, I've seen his campaign, and he seems very eager.
Yes, he is. He's been working with me for 5 years now in my office. So I could attest to his keenness to work, his sincerity. He's a son of the Mount Dor area, so he's well-grounded, well-rooted. And I think he's going to make an excellent, excellent councillor. As a matter of fact, he has a bright future ahead of him. And when I introduced him at the Quasi a few weeks ago in a campaign meeting, my exact words were, his future is so bright, you will need shades to look at him in 2 years. No, he's very keen. He has been immersed in how I operate, how I service constituents. So he knows what service is about.
Right.
Now, are these persons prepared to go full time when all the parts of the Reform Act are proclaimed? Because that's part of the intention, to reform local government delivery of services. That has been a complaint for many years.
Correct. So it's not only are they prepared to, by law they have to go to, and that is a major plank of local government reform that burgesses need to be educated on. A part-time councillor cannot fulfill the duties and rules that a modern society needs, that the modern burgess needs. There are too many local government issues. And gentlemen, let me say, as a member of parliament, local government issues are the number 3 issue that residents come to their member of parliament, simply because local government doesn't work. So a member of parliament has to see about garbage collection, drain cleaning, and everything else, which is not realistic. So that is why we have to get full-time local government councillors on the ground doing this job 24/7, because the current system of part-time councillors being paid a stipend does not work for the councillor, but more importantly, does not work for you, the burgess, who needs their support to keep their communities clean, well-run every single day. I keep telling people, local government councillors are more important than MPs to your daily existence.
Yeah, that's a fact.
What's the relationship like from you? Because you can only speak to your own relationship, your own experience between yourself as the MP and the councillors in terms of the issues that come to your office and they, in many cases, have to address.
Yeah. So what we do at my office, I have one person dedicated, because local government doesn't work, dedicated to be the liaison when constituents come, to be that liaison between my office and the different councillors in the different areas. One person dedicated. Now that should not be if you have a functioning local government system. So whilst the relationship is good, it should not be. A member of parliament should not be seen about streetlights, a water leak. All those things fall under the domain of local government. But we do it because we understand that that constituents can't get the redress that they need and the attention that they need from part-time councillors. So we have to do it, and we do it willingly and gladly, because we don't like to see people being distressed by these daily irritants.
And what are the main irritants that come to your attention?
Yeah, drainage, drains to be cleaned, drains to be built, garbage not being collected. When garbage isn't collected, you have rats and flies, cockroaches. It becomes a public health hazard. I mean, those are just 2 of the major ones that every day people complain about. And then with the expansion of the roles and responsibilities for local government will start to take over maintenance of schools. Right now, we have some issues with Mount Dog Primary School. I was up there last week. Now, why should an MP be involved in that when we have or will have a full-time local government representative with the resources at the corporation to actually take over the maintenance of schools, so that schools don't have to be maintained out of Port of Spain. Decentralize the thing. It can be done faster. It can be done better. It creates employment at the local level. You know, it's just a win-win for everybody. So I urge everybody to come out and support local government reform next week, Monday. It will work for you.
The issues of how the projects in the constituency, the development projects, are going to be reconciled with what the responsibilities of the regional bodies are. Has that come for discussion? Because I mean, in every regional body area, people want maintenance and service, but they also want development. You know, and there's a balancing act that has to take place, because some are under the auspices of the Ministry of Planning and the central government, and some are under and the minor projects are under now or will be under the regional bodies.
So under local government reform, Paul, and thanks for asking that question, local government bodies will be responsible for what we call, I think is minor planning permission. So you no longer have to go to town and country. So that's a layer of bureaucracy out. But let me get back to your major question. Do you know that many infrastructural and capital projects cannot be done at the local level because a CEO who is a public servant may not want it? Who elected a CEO to office? Who elected a CEO at a regional corporation to say yay or nay? When the MPs who are elected get the blame, the councillors who are elected get the blame, and the CEO, for some reason, blocks a project. We have to get rid of that. A public officer should not be able to stymie the will of an electorate who was elected an MP and a local government representative to get work done. So that is why we are moving to these executive councils and strip away the unfettered power of a CEO. It just does not work. And the public doesn't see this part of it. They just blame the councillors, blame the MPs. But a lot of the blame has to go at the feet of CEOs of corporations who don't cooperate with us and who we have to genuflect to get things done as representatives of the people.
That's part of the reform package, right?
And Wendell, you will know.
Yes, I can relate to that.
You can relate to that.
Yeah.
It's just an untenable situation that an unelected public officer holds the purse strings and has the decision as to what goes forward or not. And the elected officials take all the blame from the public. But the public doesn't know.
Well, I think it's been widely discussed the issues with that. We should ask the same question. Minister, how do you expect it to work now? Think about St. Joseph, your constituency, for example. Some of the areas will will have residential taxes from Tunapuna Piarco, and some will have residential taxes from Sanwo Laventil. How is that going to reconcile in terms of where the money is spent and how the projects, the maintenance projects, because it may seem complicated and convoluted to some who may not understand how it's intended to operate? So
the Tunapuna Piarco, which is the biggest region of the 14 in the country geographically, and I think also population-wise, they will collect their resources. If they don't have enough, it will be supplemented by central government. Then they will take all their infrastructural needs and projects from all regions and then allocate resources. So the Valsain St. Joseph seat, which is from Cayman, St. Joseph, Valsain North, Valsain South, down to Bamboo 1, Bamboo 2, and Nuge East Grove, they will have resources based on what they pay into the kitty and what is then supplemented by central government. And then west of Valsain St. Joseph, what is paid in by residents under Sanwo Laventil and again supplemented by central government, they will have their resources to undertake their capex, their capital expenditure projects.
But yesterday we had Khadija Amin on, your parliamentary colleague for St. Augustine, and her contention, and I guess the UNC's contention, is that there are issues that may arise because, one, some areas have higher residential house values and they may pay more and expect more, and some areas may be less densely populated, they'll be less collected, and they may collect less, and so may suffer in terms of the resources that go into those areas. Can you respond to that?
Yeah, and that's why I was careful to say it will be supplemented from central government, and that is what the UNC is ignoring. And I said that clearly. I said what Tunapuna Piarco collects will be supplemented by central government, and I also said clearly Same thing for Sawa Laventel. So even though you may have an area that is sparsely populated, it will be supplemented by central government. And the finance minister was clear to say that in budget debates. But according to the UNC, the system is broken, but leave it so. We are saying, no, the system is broken. Let's not leave it so. And they will cherry pick what misinformation to tell the public.
Yeah. I too thought that was clear. I didn't hear Ms. Amin yesterday, but I had to come off the program. But it was clear that the Minister of Finance said that whatever the shortfalls in the corporation, the ministry will supplement their subventions.
But UNC will never tell you that.
Yeah.
And you all need to be sufficiently aware so you can challenge them. And that's where the UNC gets away with murder in this country from the media. The media doesn't challenge them.
Yeah.
You could never get Kamla Prasad-Bissessar to come on a program as Dr. Keith Rowley does and answer questions from the public and answer questions from the media. She hides behind a screen.
We've tried.
Right? And similarly, I think media practitioners need to inform themselves. So when Khadija says those things, Paul, you could challenge her and say, well, the Minister of Finance said that it will be supplemented. All of us have a duty to bring the truth to the public.
No, we do challenge them, but we can't remember everything.
But that's an important point, you see.
It's an important point, but I asked the question for it to be clarified because my understanding was that there was still going to be a role for the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, even though this new regime takes place, because there are some areas, because it came up in the budget debates in both the lower and upper houses, where places that were less densely populated or where the residential house values didn't generate enough revenue for that corporation, it may the central government had a role and a responsibility at that to supplement the property tax revenues to make sure that services were provided for those areas. So
no,
I think you've clarified.
Paul, no. The point I'm trying to make is that if yesterday Ms. Amin was asked the question, didn't you hear the Minister of Finance say it will be supplemented? Then that bit of misinformation would have been addressed. Wendell knows about it. I know. The point I'm making is that the UNC gets away without challenge to their misinformation and disinformation far too often. That's the basic point I'm making.
What we're going to do is have you on as a co-host more often.
I'm not been very quiet this morning.
But he got my reminder, so he had time to be in he business and whatever Prince and Joseph. Let's move on to the Ministry of Health and the issue with the Food and Drug Division and what prompted these visits by Food and Drug and this situation where the drugs were taken off the shelves, seized or whatever happened.
So nothing prompted this. This has been an ongoing activity over the years. Chemistry, Food and Drugs, under their act, has the authority at all times to enter pharmacies and do what they are doing. It has been going on for years. So that is misinformation and disinformation part number one. What we are doing this year is stepping up the activities in concert with the TTPS and customs. And we have tried speaking to pharmacists over the years and pharmacists and pharmacy owners. So I dismiss this talk about dialogue coming from Mr. Wazir Hussain and this morning from the Pharmaceutical Society. Chemistry, Food and Drugs inspectors have been very, very accommodating in talking to pharmacists over the years about their indiscretions. It has reached a point now where talking to them, advising them, pointing out their responsibilities under the Act is not falling on fertile ears. So we have decided that this year we are going to implement the law as it should have been done over the years. Because I notice Mr. Wazir Hussain has seen it is red tape at the ministry which forces them to sell expired drugs and unregistered drugs. Now, I brought some stuff here this morning to show you all. I'm going to ask Steve. Steve, you read this. You read this.
All right.
Which is being sold in a pharmacy for $35 a bottle. Read the name on the label.
Wendell, it's called, gentlemen, it's called the Pleasure Hammer.
Right. Tell me on that label where you see the name of the manufacturer.
There's nothing except the Pleasure Hammer.
Tell me where you see the address of the manufacturer.
There is nothing but the Pleasure Hammer.
Tell me where you see an expiry date.
No, that is something I watch all the time. Nothing. There's nothing on this label.
And you want to tell me?
So this, let me just show you folks here.
Yeah.
Very front. Yeah. This is all.
Yeah. This is all.
Nothing.
Pleasure Hammer. I never see that one before, Paul. You know that one?
No. Let's not make light of this.
No,
this is
that being sold in a pharmacy?
No, I have to consult with pharmacists to tell them that this is wrong.
I don't think you need to consult with pharmacists.
Well, Minister, you use the word indiscretion. And
hold on, because we don't have much time.
Okay.
Steve, read that.
Black Ant King.
Read the directions. How do you take that, Steve? As a member of the public buying that in a pharmacy.
Chasu Kaifan. Fried rice, tom and chicken. It's all in Chinese, which I cannot read.
Do you see a date of expiry on that, Steve? If you had a problem with that, who is the manufacturer of that?
There's no date.
And all the writing is in what?
Chinese. You show the folks here. You can show them, yeah.
Right? Cool. This is what we are cracking down on. Look at this one, Steve.
What we got
this
there?
Is the most egregious one. Look at the expiry date of that drug. It's on the bottom of the bottle. The bottom.
Oh, geez, and ages. Date of manufacture, April 2015. Expiry date, April 2018.
Right?
What is this?
And I am being told that this is because of the Ministry of Health. Look at the expiry date on this drug.
How is the Ministry of Health being blamed for that?
Well, that is what Wazir Hussein was saying in the Guardian yesterday. Look, it's on the top.
All right, let's see. Expiry, December 21.
Being offered for sale. This one, March 2021.
Wow.
How on earth is the red tape at the Ministry of Health responsible for this?
Now, Minister, you used the word indiscretion earlier on, but my contention with this is that those are dangerous circumstances because people's lives are at risk. People are being dispensed these I didn't call them drugs, these things to take. And they may put your life in danger. And pharmacists.
That's what I ask him. If someone takes these drugs now, what happens to the individual?
No, but I want to get to a point of legality before that. Is it legal for pharmacists to be dispensing these drugs or have them on their shelves and selling them?
It is totally illegal. And they are taught that in pharmacy school in their 4-year bachelor's degree program. They are introduced to all the laws and regulations pertaining to their profession.
Has anyone been charged for doing this?
Well, as I said, that is now going to the TTPS. And they are also taught the ethics of their profession.
And these products were found in 40 pharmacies.
Yeah. How wide? Which connects to how widespread is the problem, Minister? Is it a very widespread problem that you're encountering, or it's limited to?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Or is it limited to a region, or is it limited to a small number of pharmacies that are breaking those rules?
Yeah. Well, according to Wazir Hussein, he said we were targeting 40 pharmacies. But that is not correct. We are going after and inspecting across the board based on intelligence that both the TTPS and Chemistry, Food and Drug gets. And whether you're a large chain or a sole trader, you are not excused or exempted from a visit from Chemistry, Food and Drugs, and very often in tandem with the TTPS.
So, Minister, so let me ask you a question. These products that you would have brought to the studio that are either expired or have no information, are they on the shelf for anyone to go and pick up, or are they in a place where you have to go and ask for it?
Very often they are behind in the dispensary. These they might be at the cashier. If you look at the cashier point of sale at any pharmacy, these impulse items, especially to do with male virility, fooling men into thinking that these things make them more sexually potent. You will normally find them at the cashier's counter.
Oh.
You mean Pleasure Hammer? I have to consult with a pharmacist to say Pleasure Hammer, the label has no manufacturer, no instruction.
But to me, that's a flagrant breach of the law and putting people's lives at risk. And to me, that's the real issue here.
And people are defending this. Wazir Hussein and the Pharmaceutical Society in the Guardian this morning are defending this.
But what's their defense for it?
We should have dialogue.
Dialogue on what? There's no expiry date.
But that's the point I'm trying to make.
There's nothing. What are the ingredients on that hammer thing? Nobody knows.
But I must have dialogue to tell them it is illegal, unethical, and downright dangerous to offer a product to a pharmacy, to a patient, after you have gone to a bachelor's degree for 4 years. For 4 years.
To come down to that stupidity.
To come down to this level of stupidity.
Yeah.
But it's dangerous.
This is what Wazir Hussein and the Pharmaceutical Society this morning are defending.
The other side of that story, Minister, is how are these things getting here?
So when we ask them for receipts, because we are entitled to ask for receipts, we cannot get receipts.
But a receipt must be given
if
they're buying a product?
No, sorry. When we ask them for the bill, the invoice, that they buy it from a wholesaler, we can't get an invoice, so we can't backtrace it. The wholesaler, a customs entry. It's a cash business. And I must have dialogue.
So is it part of like a suitcase trade where they bring these items in?
The suitcase trade.
It is exactly that. It's a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise.
And that's why I asked the question, because of how dangerous it is to be having, when you brought these, what you describe as impulse drugs, the question arises now, what other types of pharmaceuticals are passing under the radar of chemistry, food, and drugs that may pose a risk to the population's health who purchase them?
Well, it's not passing under the radar of chemistry, food, and drugs. The reason I have them, it is because it is on the radar of chemistry, food, and drugs. And I am being pilloried by pharmacists now for doing this. You know what a pharmacist messaged me and told me yesterday? That I should inform them when the inspectors are coming.
What? So they could move the
inspector. Okay,
so they could move Pleasure Hammer.
Drugs, Move the hammer, put it out, take it home.
So let's take this to the ridiculous level. The police is conducting an exercise to catch criminals. We must tell the criminals, the boss, we coming by your home 7 o'clock in the morning,
But additionally, Minister.
No, this is a pharmacist.
No, because if you're breaking a law, it's criminal activity.
No, he berated me in a message telling me that we should inform the pharmacies when we are coming. So this is not under the radar of chemistry.
Minister, I keep seeing Mr. Hussein's title as former pharmacy head. Is there a present pharmacy head?
Yes,
pharmacy board head? And what is his response to this as the present pharmacy board head?
I don't know.
Oh. Has he reached out to the health ministry to discuss this issue that affects some pharmacists, obviously?
Not as yet.
And the regulation of the industry?
Gentlemen, the chemistry, food, and drugs divisions over the years has turned their faces blue talking to pharmacists about their legal and ethical responsibilities to the population. It has fallen on deaf ears. This idea of suitcase trade is as old as I am old in the pharmacy business. It's about 40 years old. But I am determined to, let me choose my words carefully, to impact positively on this. Because it talks about customs, it talks about Warehousing, it talks about the responsibility of the pharmacy owners. And that's why when we ask the pharmacy owners, give us a bill for Pleasure Hammer, they can't. Give us a bill for Black and King, they can't. So we can't trace it back to an importer and then trace it back to see where they came through customs.
But look at that.
Are there other drugs, for example?
There, for example, people go into pharmacies and say, "Can I get 2 of whatever?"
Correct.
And
Correct.
they get 2 pills.
Yeah.
Maybe from an expired box.
Correct.
And the consumer does not know.
And
that's a very dangerous situation.
And I am being told by Wazir Hussein and the Pharmaceutical Society that it is the ministry's fault because of red tape at the ministry. Could you believe
you brought the
that?
emergency? I know. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Look at
other drugs apart from Wendell's favorite drug.
Tell me.
I can
Steve,
pronounce
I'm
these
passing
things
it to you.
All right. So I know this one is Crestor.
All right.
It's a cholesterol drug,
read
right?
the instructions.
What language is that?
Thank you.
It looks like Russian.
And pharmacists are taught that labeling must be in English in their 4-year bachelor's degree program.
Yeah.
Look at the others. Tell me.
All right. So it's Crestor. Whatever this one is.
What Minister, does the ministry have any remit over the cost of drugs, particularly?
No. Let's not go down that road. This is a free enterprise system.
Okay, I'm just asking a question.
There's no price control, as we all know.
No, why is it in Saran wrap?
From the public awareness perspective, is the ministry planning to go on a public awareness campaign?
Yes,
so the public is aware that what is the standard practice and what they should be buying into or not buying into to protect their lives and health?
Yes.
No, but
the answer is yes.
This one says raises the question. It raises the question in my mind, Minister, because you have the very regulated or supposed to be regulated pharmaceutical industry. But as a corollary to that, you have a lot of these health places,
supplements
that are pretty much unregulated, where you may have questionable characters saying, and of course we have a rich history in Trinidad and the Caribbean of natural remedies that are not necessarily under the same level of scientific scrutiny as drugs, but for which many people vouch that herbal remedies from the Caribbean and what people say, take this for virility, etc., etc. What's your take on that whole industry that is pretty much unregulated?
So my take is that we collected the evidence in November of 2018 on one particular individual. We sent the file to the DPP, and that's where it is, because we took it very, very seriously. So the file.
Would you care to share the name of the individual? Would you care to share the name of the individual?
No, because when this goes to a court of law, it must not be said that the Minister of Health said X, Y, and Z, and the case collapsed. Paul, I'm sure you understand that of all people.
Yeah,
I can't use the pharmaceutical license.
No, they are not pharmacies.
They are pharmacists.
They are not pharmacies. And I don't want to say much because of my job is protecting the public's interest. For the first time, a Minister of Health sent a file to the DPP on this issue in November of 2018.
Now, one of these drugs, you have kids on it. It's a kid's drug.
Yeah.
I don't know how many pharmacists that can read that language.
They can't.
And say, well, suppose in legit, it's give one, and they say, no, give him two.
Yeah.
But they're just guessing.
Yeah. And pharmacists are angry with me personally. They say, how could I, as a pharmacist, do this to my fellow brothers?
Oh, it's a friend thing.
Yeah. And they say, everybody wants corruption in this country to be addressed, but leave my part alone. Fix everything else. Fix the corrupt practices everywhere else, but leave my sector alone.
But I think it's dangerous also because it's bringing a vulnerable sector of society. When people are ill, they they depend on a pharmacist as they depend on a doctor to give them legitimate information that and prescriptions that will improve their health. And if you can't read the label as a standard procedure to your best practice around the world, or if you're dispensing expired drugs or drugs that are not supposed to be in the system, there's an issue there. Is it that what's the protocol? Because you can't have an expansive list of supplements and drugs and stimulants from around the world. Is there a guideline? Is there a list of banned drugs and supplements? How does it work?
Okay, so drugs that are approved by Chemistry, Food and Drugs and signed off by myself are gazetted. So it's in the public domain. However, the pharmacist is supposed to know all of these things. And by common sense, you do not purchase drugs from a wholesaler where you can't get an invoice. Purchase drugs from bona fide distributors that are invoiced. So if something happens, there's a paper trail. But we can't get an invoice for Pleasure Hammer. We can't get an invoice for Black Ant King. We can't get an invoice for all these drugs that have Turkish and Russian
with kids on it.
And you are taught this in your 4-year bachelor's degree.
Is it also an issue for drugs that contain THC? Because my understanding is that people who are seeking to have those types of interventions are also getting from some pharmacists in the country, though they may not have been approved.
Yes, and that is correct, and we are clamping down on all of those things. We are clamping down on all of those things.
That's a lot. If we can, in the last 5 minutes, move to the issue of NCDs in the country. I know you are passionate about this, and what's the ministry's perspective? Because I saw a report the other day that spoke to the Caribbean and the Trinidad Tobago being, if not first, certainly in the top 3 in terms of the incidence of NCDs in Trinidad and Tobago, putting a huge strain on the healthcare system and also certainly impacting negatively on the health and lives of the country, people in the country.
Yes, so NCDs globally is one of the #1 issues facing populations, mainly because we have adopted wholesale Americanized way of life, from food to being sedentary, from being linked to devices, especially for children, lack of exercise, the pushing of soft drinks and sugar beverages over water, the pushing of fast foods, and the Americanization of our diet and of our way of life is posing serious problems around the world. We have launched a very aggressive NCD program, and it is beginning to show some signs of progress. I recently shared with the public some data from one of our initiatives to control high blood pressure, where those patients enrolled in our clinics under a program called HEARTS, the number of people with controlled blood pressure is going up significantly. So we are having some successes there. In our diabetic clinics, we are starting to see evidence that people's HbA1c, which is a measure of your glucose control over a 3-month period, we are starting to see signs that HbA1cs, which are up to 7 is normal. People come into our clinics with 11, 12, 13, 14. It is starting to drop. So we are starting to see the fruits of our NCD programs. We are starting to see the fruits of our NCD program with breastfeeding. And we encourage all new mothers to breastfeed. That is a surefire protection against NCDs for both baby and mother. And do not introduce formula to your baby as early as you do it. We should try to exclusively breastfeed for about 6 months. And one of the statistics to show how breastfeeding is taking off now, before our 2020 national policy on breastfeeding, only 10% of the women given birth in our hospitals within 24 hours were breastfeeding. Now, gentlemen, that is up to 95%. We have moved from 10% to 95% early initiation of breastfeeding within 24 hours, and that includes mothers who deliver by cesarean section. So we are encouraging the adoption of lifestyle changes from pregnancy with our diabetes in pregnancy program, from early lactation, early bonding, early attachment to the breast and to the nipple. I have given you the statistics where we have moved from 10% to 95% early initiation of breastfeeding within 24 hours. I have given you the numbers on what we are starting to see are positive trends in the control of diabetes with the HbA1c numbers and the blood pressure numbers in our hearts program. So it is culture change. I mean, we are fighting a culture change which developed over decades. So we can't flip a switch. But since we started mounting these programs about 4 or 5 years ago, we are starting to see the positive trends and the positive shifts. And in the last few minutes I have left with your viewers, if I can encourage you to do 3 things. 1, substitute water for soft drinks and juices. Sugary-based soft drinks and juices have no nutritional value, and they lead to high rates of diabetes. 2, energy drinks too. Energy drinks are useless. 2, exercise is free. Walk around, jump, skip rope, push-ups, anything. Get moving. That is free. And 3, start to substitute a little more fruits and vegetables for this box lunch thing and this box, this chicken and chips and things.
Is the ministry concerned about the increase in the use of vaping devices in the country?
Yes, and there's a position right now that I'm taking. We got legal advice from the Attorney General as to how to approach it, and we are following his advice, and I'll be taking a position very soon to Cabinet on that.
Central Block progress?
I was there 2 weeks ago. It's about 34% completed. Hard construction is going to finish at the end of last quarter of 2024. We started commission equipment, and hopefully, all things being equal, it will be open by the first quarter of 2025.
Congrats on the admin building opening, and thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you, and also Sangre Grande Hospital is on stream, hopefully for opening later on this year or the first quarter of next year.
I'm wondering about Sangre Grande, actually, yes, because I know some work was going on.
That's a project that's very dear to me.
According to when the thanks are coming and full weekend.
Breakfast.
I'll have my breakfast. No. Thank you so much for breakfast.
You already have binge on it, Paul.
Well, have a good day, Minister. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Cheers.
You all have a great day. Be safe.
All right, folks, have a wonderful day. Remember to let go and let God. And stay away from Pleasure Hammer.
Of course, I just want to remind people that theater is on this weekend, which is infinitely better for your health than Pleasure Hammer. And of course, it's on for 1 night only in San Fernando. Of course, space is very premium in San Fernando, and we could only get 1 night at Sapa on Sunday evening at 6:30 p.m. We will be having our play What You're Looking At Me So For. So South, we are finally in your area. 1 night only, Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Tickets available at our usual outlets, K Squared Fashions, Gulf City, C3 Center, Friends of Marabella by the Roundabout, and of course, Creme Fresh in Brentwood Mall in Chagonas. And also the box office at Sapa opens today from 12 noon to 6 p.m. So you can get your tickets at the box office at Sapa. I suggest get your tickets early since it's just 1 show. We expect that those tickets will zoom. So tickets are available at the Sapa box office from 12 noon today. Have a fantastic day. Remember to smile and laugh. It's good for your health. Have a good one.
Thank you so much, and we ask you to continue standing for that invocation.
Thank you. Good morning. Let's bow our hearts and our minds in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come together, Lord, to launch this home of media. We thank you for the young people that will benefit from this program. We thank you for those who've put this together, for all the hard work that is going into this. We thank you for the minister, our CEO. We pray that you would continue to guide those in leadership, oh Lord God, who are working on these efforts in the Ministry of Labor, the Ministry of Communications, and TTT. We thank you for blessing these efforts, oh God. We pray that everything will flow smoothly and be in decency and in order, and that in the end you will get the glory. We thank you for all these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Thank you so much, Ms. Robertson. The Honorable Simon de Nobrega, Minister on the Office of the Prime Minister Communications, Ms. Jacqueline Charles, Permanent Secretary, Office of the Prime Minister Communications, Ms. Natalie Willis, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Labor, Mr. Christoph Brathwaite, Chief Executive Officer Acting of TTT Limited, members of the management team at TTT Limited, specially invited guests, OJT Division, Ministry of Labor. Good morning and welcome to TTT Limited's Home of Media OJT project. I'm DK Rostar. This is an initiative that TTT as a legacy brand and national broadcaster feels a sense of responsibility towards the upcoming cohort of media professionals. But to speak to that, in addition to other welcoming remarks, please welcome Mr. Christoph Brathwaite, Chief Executive Officer of TTT Limited.
Thank you, DK. Short people issues. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Honorable Simon de Nobrega, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Communications. PS, Ms. Jacqueline Charles, Permanent Secretary of the Office of Prime Minister, Communications. Ms. Natalie Willis, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Labor. Ms. Rhonda Francis, who is not with us at this particular time, but we send her greetings nonetheless. And specially invited guests, OGT Division, Ministry of Labor, members of management team, stakeholders, TTT Limited, friends of the media far and wide. My name is Christoph Brathwaite. I am the CEO of TTT, acting at this time, and I bring some brief remarks. But first, let me say my apologies for the absence of my chair, Rhonda Francis, who is also pivotal in this particular launch. She has a family emergency, and we wish her family and herself well during this particular time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this particular project was conceptualized, and I must say, and I know my minister may shy away from this, but was conceptualized in the brain of the Honorable Minister Simon Nobrega. When he brought this matter to me, I was a little skeptical, knowing the trenches and the waves that we would have to circumvent to be able to get here, given the current media landscape and I guess the issues with the technological matters, as well as bridging new media together. However, he was able to convince me, and with the aid of my chair as well, to convince me that this particular project was something that the nation needed at this particular time. I think he did more than just convince me. I think he made it my passion. And I thank you for that, Minister, because I did see the benefit that this particular concept and project would bring to TTT, not only in the media aspect, but also in the wider hemisphere in terms of how we bring across news and what we can do to young persons interested in media. So with that, like I told my minister before, that I'm not a talker, so this is just brief remarks, and we shall open up the floor back to DK so that we can introduce our honorable minister, who I believe is going to bring us not only greetings, but to explain to us the concept of how this particular project is. I believe, PS, you're up next. Yes, apologies. Minister always speaks last. You see, I'm so excited about this project because I really don't want to trump and follow suit on my minister, because this is such an exciting project that has wide-ranging value and benefits to the society as a whole. So I'm very excited about this. DK, you may do the introductions following proper procedure and protocol. Thank you.
do I follow that? Thank you very much, CEO. Something that the nation needs at this time. Well, to bring further remarks this morning, we have Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Labor, Ms. Natalie Willis.
Yeah, the shortness continues. Right. The Honorable Simon Dunoberger, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, responsible for communications. Ms. Jacqueline Charles, Permanent Secretary, Office of the Prime Minister, Communications. Mr. Christopher Braffett, CEO, Acting TTT Limited. Ms. Joanne David, Director of the On-the-Job Training Division. Mr. Curtis Daniel, Deputy Director of the On-the-Job Training Division, TTT Management and Staff, Ministry of Labor and OGT Division teams, specially invited guests, good morning. It is indeed my distinct pleasure on behalf of the Minister of Labor, who could not be here this morning, as well as the Ministry of Labor, to bring greetings today as we gather to embark on an exciting new chapter in the evolution of the OGT program's use of the government's school-to-work transition business model. I stand before you with great optimism as we explore new opportunities through TTT Limited's House of Media graduate program. This program is a strategic initiative that aims to attract and develop young talent, shaping them into future leaders who can contribute significantly to the organization's growth and success. It benefits both the graduates who receive valuable professional development and the organization, which gains access to fresh perspectives and skilled professionals. Therefore, today's signing of a memorandum of agreement would provide a structured framework for collaboration, set expectations, and lay the groundwork for a successful partnership. This is indeed a milestone achievement for both entities, and I look forward to the new opportunities this partnership will bring to our young and vibrant graduates. The Ministry of Labor, through its on-the-job training program, continues to maintain its focus on providing work-based experience for new graduates while emphasizing decent work and youth and workforce development. The program currently manages 4,795 active trainees as of June 2023 and 1,464 registered training providers spread across the public and private sectors and NGOs with a monthly placement target of 400 trainees. It is a privilege to continue to build on the established relationship the OGT program has with TTT Limited, and I'm told that this relationship is approximately a decade old. The ministry is embracing memorandum of agreements as the new standard for managing the relationship between training providers and the OGT division. These MOAs lay out the areas of responsibilities of both entities, the obligations of the organizations to train in particular occupational areas with specific competency development and learning outcomes. Thus far, the ministry has signed MOAs with other leading organizations like the National Energy Corporation, National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago, MIC Institute of Technology, with several other organizations in the pipeline. It is said that every successful business relationship is a strong willingness for collaboration and a shared vision. Today, we come together not just as separate entities seeking individual gains, but as partners united by a common purpose and a shared commitment to develop Trinidad and Tobago's next labor force. As we look closely at this partnership, I believe it is essential to emphasize the values that underpin our respective organizations. The Ministry of Labor places high standards on integrity, innovation, leadership, being people-centered, results-oriented, and quality-focused. And I see the same values reflected in your organization. It is this alignment of values that make me confident that our partnership will continue to be not only productive, but also enduring, as we are both ably supported by a dedicated team. I am pleased to see this collaboration between the OJT division of the Ministry of Labour and TTT Limited, and eagerly anticipate the accomplishments that will undoubtedly mark this partnership. I wish great success to the trainees who will onboard in the coming weeks. Thank you.
P.S. Willis, for really setting that context, complete with statistics. Sometimes figures can make an idea a lot more tangible. Well, I'm glad that I won't necessarily have to adjust the mic as much this time around, but to give the feature address, we have Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister Communications, the Honorable Simon de Nobrega.
Very much. Thank you very much, DK. Well, I have the salutation list and I can take my name off the first. So let me begin by recognizing my Permanent Secretary, Ms. Jacqueline Charles, Office of Prime Minister Communications, my right hand, my rock, very often my steadying force. Ms. Natalie Wills, the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Labour. I join with you, Christophe, in her absence. I would like to recognize the chairperson of TTT Limited, Mrs. Rhonda Francis, who, you are very correct, has been pivotal in getting us to this position. The director and deputy director of the OJT program, the management and staff of TTT Limited, as well as the team from the Ministry of Labour and the OJT division in particular, and persons who are joining us here as well. Christophe wanted to assign this to me as the line minister. And while yes, it was a concept that I had come up with, even previous to your assumption of the role of CEO, it should not be undervalued. The pivotal role that both you and the team, the chairman and the board, and of course OJT and the Ministry of Labour and the Minister of Labour played in bringing us to this reality. The Constitution of this country guarantees us two freedoms. There's a freedom of expression and a freedom of the press, both of which we as a nation need to jealously guard, but both of which carry with it an onerous responsibility to be the watchdogs of the nation. Any functioning democracy really requires a fearless and intrepid media, a fearless and intrepid fourth estate that is allowed to perform its role without fear or favor, without affection or ill will. And it is this critical need for this intrepid and fearless fourth estate and the role that they play in society, because it's a vital role that they must play in the development of a well-informed citizenry and a well-informed society. But the truth is that the media landscape has changed so much over the last few years, and in particular, I would say over the last 5 years, maybe last 3 years, in no small part to the emergence of the digital platform and all of the opportunities that that digital platform presents. This new diversity of media and the multiplicity of opportunities for expression and for opinion. But despite this expanded field of opportunity, there still remains a restriction for young green journalists and media and communications graduates to begin their careers in established environments where they will have the opportunity to benefit from the guidance and the mentorship of more experienced and established professionals. I have had numerous conversations over the last 3 years with persons who have, at this point, exited the media landscape, and they always talk about that journey that they started in newsrooms, where they were able to benefit from these experienced journalists that taught them in many ways even more than they were able to learn during the course of their studies, because they were able to learn the nuances of the industry. They were able to learn the ethics, the ethos of their organization and the wider industry. So yes, there is a challenge for all new entrants into the job market, and the media is no different, where the benefit of work experience is a deciding criteria for employment, but the only way that you will get that experience is to be employed. And I know that is at the crux of the OJT mandate. So the truth is that the reality is that a good and balanced, professional and authentic journalistic a journalistic core is a critical component in a healthy diet of any nation and any forward-thinking society, particularly against the backdrop of very often what occurs on social media and in digital and in digital space in particular. And there is a desperate and dire need for the continuance of authentic and truth-centered journalism, which provides the most effective means of ensuring that public conversation and public debate, while based on differing opinions and differing perspectives, is still rooted in unassailable and established fact. So we have a need for a conversation that happens, and this is not a Trinidad and Tobago issue. This is a global issue. We have this need that requires an industry that needs succession planning, that needs this pipeline of young, energized journalists who are entering into the industry. We have this need for the very journalists themselves to find space, to find work. And even if they do not find a space in the established media houses, they may very well go into the digital space. We see that constantly. Every traditional media house, every traditional source of media has found itself into the digital space. TTT Live Online is a prime example of it, but every newspaper has a digital presence. Many radio stations have a digital presence. Many journalists themselves have a digital presence. So even if we have these young, bright, intelligent, but green journalists who are entering into this space, what is our responsibility? Well, our responsibility is to ensure that when they enter it, they also do so having benefited from the wisdom of experience, having benefited from the ability to have operated in an established newsroom, understanding all of the things that goes into that, and taking that into their own journey as they progress. So we've established what the issue is, and the issues are. So what is the solution? And Christoph is right. I was very passionate about it, and I am glad to see in many ways his passion surpass mine, because when I put it to you as the CEO, I put it to the chairman and to the board, that I saw this as something critical to TTT, something critical for TTT to do and to be, because it was only right that TTT should be the solution provider. You know, the government through COSTAT, established the Ken Gordon School of Journalism. Yeah. So we took care, I shouldn't say we took care. We assisted in the first part of the equation, bringing these journalists, training these journalists, teaching them, taking them through that part, that first leg of the relay. But as we've established, they come out of there, and then what are the options? But in a real sense, that's always been TTT's role. TTT pioneered in the early 60s, pioneered television. You know, there are some young faces here, but I grew up with the faces and voices of Bobby Thomas and Dale Kohler Singh and Dominic Kalipasad and Hazel Ward Redmond, and I mean, that list is endless. So it was only right, it was only fit and proper that TTT should again step into the void to provide that opportunity, to step into the void to ensure that there was succession planning in media as a whole. And the objective of the program, PS, and I thank you for outlining it, because I think you said it perfectly. The objective of the program is to equip the participants with the skills and the expertise required to excel in journalism, in programming, in production, and in the various leadership roles within the media industry. The ultimate goal, though, is, of course, to create a talent pool that can contribute and uplift and carry the wider media fraternity. And I am elated. I don't know if it is public knowledge as yet, but I am elated, Christophe, to hear from you, and I suspect you will discuss that as we go forward, the people who have gotten on board to engage with TTT to be a part of this process. Because even as we do the business of this program, it is important that we also benefit from the wisdom and the experience of those who have walked this process, who have lived this life. Because if it's one thing, again, that I have realized, is that journalism is a vocation. It is a life. It is a lifelong decision to be this watchdog for the wider society. So what is the opportunity? The opportunity is an extraordinary journey of personal growth and development that will take the participant through all aspects of media operations and provide them with an unforgettable experience. The opportunity is that while they are entering journalism at a very scary and exciting time, they will be able to benefit from true mentors that they will encounter here at TTT and emerge as true multimedia professionals able to hold their own in any aspect of the industry. The innovative approach is reflective, I would like to say, in large measure, of this administration's whole of government approach to managing people and the resources of our nation. This program sees the Ministry of Labour, the Office of the Prime Minister Communications, through our actioning agencies, our actioning bodies, TTT and the OJT division, working in tandem as a supplier and trainer of the interns. And there's a necessary and obvious nexus between what we are doing here and the Ministry of Education, under which COSTAT falls. So we see right here 3 ministries, 3 executing agencies, all working together at different stages of the journey to come to a solution that at the end of the day benefits the wider citizenry. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not a fan of long speeches, all right? I am not, despite the cough from the acting CEO. I think that the business of today lies in the presentation that is going to be made. And the business of today is to start the next leg with the signing of this MOU. So I want to sincerely thank the board and management of TTT. I want for the conceptualization and implementation. Christophe, you took what was in many ways a rough concept in my mind. I would like to think it was more than that. But when you brought a refined product to me, I understood exactly how much more this could have been, and it was reflective of your own passion for the project, although lit by your humble servant. I want to thank my cabinet colleague, Mr. Stephen McClatchy, Minister of Labour, the PS, Ministry of Labour, as well as OJT, for the unstinting support through this process. I know there was a back and forth as to how we were going to do this, but it was centered in ensuring that the persons who would participate were, one, protected, two, were the right fit, and three, would be the right persons to benefit from this process. So I thank you for your contribution, and as I said, your unstinting support for this. And I offer my sincerest appreciation for all the participants, and in this sense, I mean the mentors, who have offered their time, their talent, and that treasure that they have to ensure that this journey is one of excitement, it is one of innovation, and one of stellar accomplishment. I look forward to seeing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that address, Minister, and for particularly underpinning the need to marry competencies in the tech and the current landscape, as well as having it grounded in that solid principle that is this very specific discipline. You also spoke about the importance of mentorship. Now, you will be working a lot today, CEO, so we invite you again in order to do the presentation of TTT's Limited Home of Media OJT project.
Thank you, DK, and thank you, Minister, again. So, but before I begin, I must acknowledge and thank my supporting staff and all the stakeholders of TTT who have made this possible. I am the CEO of TTT Acting, and by that, it means that I have to roll out the vision and the concept of my minister and my line minister, and well, and more than that, the government of TTT, which I thank, because none of this could have happened without support from the government, from the Ministry of Finance, from the Ministry of Labour, from the Ministry. And I recognize all the stakeholders in this and putting it together, especially, again, my staff and my team. So as I said before, as CEO, I had to roll out the concept. So what I had to look at in first instance is where and how this could happen and how it should look. So I was walking around TTT and looking for space, because we have space problems. And my stakeholders will always complain to me that we don't have space and they're sitting down on top of each other, et cetera, et cetera. So I also thank them for this opportunity that we have now been provided with somewhere that we can not only provide an OJT space in terms of the project, but also a space for TTT stakeholders too, because that is very, very important to me. As we go through a change management process and a transformation process to be number one again. So let me begin, because I'll go on and on and on. Right, so this was a brief introduction. I believe Minister has touched upon this already. I've also touched upon this too as well. And also the partnership, which we thank again with the Honorable Stephen McClatchy, Minister of Labour. So, I have a little saying, the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. Apparently, that's what Minister tells me all the time. So, to begin, so to envision this particular project, we also have to recognize the importance of persons who have had professionalism, the institutional knowledge in terms of media. So I envisioned a masterclass, as I call it, or a masterclass of mentors, so to speak, which then they will be able to give their institutional knowledge and various techniques and skills in media. I've always been a firm believer in the please and thank yous, the basics of everything that we do. And we could say that the mentors will have the institutional knowledge to be able to give to the OJT trainees, to be able to develop not only the basic required skills, but the please and thank yous in terms of media. some of the persons who we have support from, that we're going to put into our masterclass, who will be having different series as well as seminars with our OJTs, persons like Goldie Bruce, Mr. Neil Giuseppe, Wendell Constantine, Lisa Wickham, Josanne Leonard, and Samantha Best. And there are many, many more who are we also going to be able to contact in the near future, who will also lend assistance to our OJTs. Right. So some of the content of the I guess the what do you call it, curriculum, in terms of what the OJTs would be learning at this point in time is there. Some of the basic principles of advertising in media. There's also radio with new technology and new media. We've seen, like during the COVID, we have a lot of interviews and presentations which come online. So we have to adapt to those things too as well. So there will also be programs developing that particular skill. Zoom interviews, dressing for TV. So basic things, the techniques for TV, radio, telephone ads, and the use of social media. The fundamentals of the recording studio environment. You'll see that the room that we have created, or the space that we've created, facilitates audio programming, engineering, etc. So this is a swift overview of the space. Now, the space before this was a room filled with old assets of TTT, which we had to clear out, and which also, I must say, is not as easy as clearing out and getting rid of our items, because we had to go through a whole procurement procedure because of the new procurement rules to be able to get rid of these old assets. We had to number them. We had to go through, we had to form a committee, 2 subcommittees, get board approval. So getting where we are now, I would say, is a phenomenal feat in such short space of time when the minister brought this particular project to me. Right. So this is the new design layout of the room. As you can see, it's approved acoustics, the flexible seating arrangements accommodate different learning styles and group work, access to equipment and technology to provide hands-on training. It's a professional environment, as you see. Right. Yeah. So this is a better view of the room. There's also, because of the size of the room, I also utilize the terms of spacing also in terms of record management and record keeping. I also utilize that because at TTT, we also have a bit of a challenge in terms of record keeping. That was addressed also. So that was also a bonus for the room connectivity. Presentation board too as well. These are just different. Right. So this particular room will actually be one of the first projects from the OJTs too as well. It is to look at audio engineering, as well as visual engineering too as well, and as well as acoustic engineering. We plan to make this a project. So what you see here is actually a finished cut of what one of the first projects that the OJTs in visual and audio engineering would be undertaking. So this will be the end result of it. So it's a full autistic acoustics room where you could do studio engineering as well as production. So as you can see, it's a new space and a new environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, CEO. And it's almost as though as soon as you sit, you're going to be popping up again, because we have the signing of the memorandum of agreement. And this will take place between the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Labor, as well as the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer. And we're asking you to do it here, thank you, behind the desk. Sorry. Literally a man for all seasons. We're going to have closing remarks right now from none other than the Chief Executive Officer.
Brief this time. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, PSs, members from the ODC division, my staff, hardworking staff, all the stakeholders at TTT. Thank you very much. This initiative is going to be a national reward. The importance of this is going to be felt throughout the media industry, even in our competitors, because we will be now known as the home of media, and we will be providing your house with really great and professional persons who will develop their skills at TTT Limited as it was before. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, CEO. And I love the distinction in the sense that we will be providing your house with something from our home. So thank you. This has been the launch of TTT's Home of Media project, and this brings an end to the streaming part of it. So thank you very much for those who would have tuned into the broadcast. We invite you to stay tuned to TTT, the Home of Media.
It is indeed a pleasure, an honor, and a privilege to have His Royal Highness here with us today with his entourage. And as I sat there listening in the presence of royalty, I recall very vividly my trip with the Honorable Prime Minister Dr. Rowley to Ghana in 2016. And there are a number of things that will forever be with me from that visit to Ghana. We did visit one of the gas processing facilities out on the West Coast, and it was with a sense of pride, the same way Mr. Mohammed spoke, that you got that from the Ghanaian people. And that is something that we must make sure continues with our people as we go forward. But the second most memorable moment for me that changed the course of my thinking a few years ago when I was a lot younger, or at least I felt a lot younger, was when we visited an old slave post on the coast. And I had studied West Indian history up to A-levels, and in particular wrote my papers on the atrocities of the African slave trade. And to now see it firsthand and no longer in a book where you read about it, it moved me in ways that nothing else could. And I remember walking down to as far as you could go, not all the way to the beach, and to see where they held our ancestors, our African brothers and sisters back then. And it's at that moment in time that I took a personal decision that anything that I can do in whatever God asked me to do going forward, I would. And coming into the energy sector, I want to draw to our attention in the energy sector and the global energy sector in particular. If we do not work closer, and Your Royal Highness, you said it on Monday in our meeting with the Prime Minister, as countries on the southern side of the world, if we do not take the decisions now and work together, unbeknownst to many, there is another wave of colonialism that is taking place, especially in the energy sector. And I can say here with humility and maybe a pinch of pride that we have been leading the charge against this on the global stage. And it was not too long ago in Cairo, Egypt, when we were participating in the Gas Exporters Countries Forum, which is a GECF, which is a small gathering of 58% of the gas owners in the world, that Trinidad and Tobago, small Trinidad and Tobago, made one significant intervention. And all of the countries at the table took it on board and inserted it into our ministerial statement. And I will tell you what the intervention was. I made a plea because I am seeing once again what is going on the continent of Africa. Africa has significant hydrocarbon resources. Africa is one of the continents that does not have the type of energy security for its people because of how wide and diverse the continent is. So there are still areas in Africa where you're sitting on significant hydrocarbon resources, but those in the wealthy, developed world are taking decisions that it should not be financed or when it should be exploited, how it should be exploited, that it should be exported as opposed to being utilized for the persons, the citizens, our brothers and sisters in Africa. And my intervention was as follows, that we have a responsibility to call upon the financial institutions as well as the multinational oil and gas companies to properly develop, along in cooperation with the African citizens, the utilization of your God-given hydrocarbon resources. And it was accepted and inserted into the ministerial statement. Because you see, Your Majesty, I am a strong believer that we must take hold of our own destiny. And it is up to us, and this time now, that we get together. And every time I'm on an international platform and I speak about the hypocrisy of what I see taking place today in Europe, when they tell us that we must have less carbon emissions, we must clean up the environment, we must do this, we must do that, that Africa must not develop its hydrocarbon resources. But when the Russia-Ukraine war took place on the 24th of February last year, the first thing they did is restart every single coal plant they could, which is the worst emitter into the atmosphere. And maybe stupidly, I've been calling them out for it. But the next point I make is that if the CARICOM region, as small as we are, work along with Latin America and Africa, we will be a voice that everyone must take note of when deciding policies going forward. So, Your Royal Highness, it is a plea that I make to you as but one individual in a small country, but one with great beliefs that we can take control of our destiny. And for you and your delegation, as powerful as it is here today, to know that you have a partner in Trinidad and Tobago, and that you have a team that is on standby at any moment to work not only with you in Ghana, but throughout the continent of Africa, to make sure that your people are provided with the opportunity to develop their resources, because it is your resources. It is not the resources of those with much money. And to do it in a manner that will benefit your people, because that is part of the fight that we have been undertaking in the last 7 or 8 years here in Trinidad as we renegotiate. Your Majesty, it is my privilege to sit as close to a king as I ever will. But to let yourself and your delegation know that in Trinidad and Tobago, you have a partner that is on standby and ready to take up the charge, and we need to do it now for the generations to come, and don't let them close us out again. And I suspect very soon I won't be able to travel to many of these countries. So welcome. Welcome to Trinidad and Tobago, which is a home. It also struck me when I was there and we were reading the names that you have, many of those names today. One that stood out in my mind was Kwamina. And then you have Mitchells, and you have all of these names. You are here in Trinidad and Tobago amongst us. Welcome home. And please do enjoy the rest of your visit here. And I hope that it is not the last visit here. But most importantly, the energy sector of Trinidad and Tobago stands ready, and at your behest to work with Ghana as well as our brothers and sisters on the continent to do what is right for our people. Thank you.